In the vast darkness of space, the starship Curiosity glided toward Earth, carrying its crew of alien students from the peaceful and advanced civilization of the Zanari. This was no ordinary school trip. The Zanari, a species that thrived on knowledge and exploration, had sent their most promising students on a mission to study Earth's culture and history. The Zanari had heard of Earth's wonders, its breathtaking landscapes, its technological innovations, and most importantly, the resilience of its people. As the Curiosity approached Earth's atmosphere, Zora, a bright-eyed Zanari student, stood at the observation deck, mesmerized by the blue planet. "So this is Earth. It looks so peaceful from here," she whispered to herself. Her mentor, Professor Talik, a seasoned Zanari historian, stood beside her. "Yes, Zora, it does. But remember, appearances can be deceiving. This world has a complicated history, full of struggles, wars, and survival. It's one of the reasons we chose Earth for this mission. There's much to learn here." The Curiosity landed at a discreet Zanari base set up in Earth's orbit for their research missions. Earth was unaware of their presence, as the Zanari believed in observing without interference. Inside the ship's study room, Professor Talik began the first lesson for his students. A holographic display appeared, showing Earth's history in a timeline. "Today, we begin our exploration of Earth's past. What you are about to see may shock you. Despite their advanced technology and incredible achievements, humans have experienced countless wars and conflicts throughout their existence, yet they've survived and even thrived." The students exchanged puzzled glances. In the Zanari culture, violence was almost unheard of. They had long ago evolved beyond conflict, focusing instead on harmony and cooperation. The idea that a species could endure through so much violence and chaos was difficult for them to grasp. Zora raised her hand. But why? Why would they fight so much? Surely there must have been a better way. Professor Talik nodded, expecting the question. Humans are driven by many things: fear, power, survival, and sometimes even hope. Conflict, for them, has been both a curse and a catalyst for progress. It's complex, but their ability to endure and adapt is remarkable. He activated the first hologram, the Earth in the early 20th century, an era marked by the First World War. The students gasped as images of war-torn landscapes, trenches filled with soldiers, and destruction unfolded before their eyes. The Zanari were shocked by the intensity of the battles and the devastation. World War I, Talik explained, was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. It involved many nations and led to massive loss of life and destruction. But it also pushed humans to innovate rapidly. Necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention. One of the students, Cree, leaned forward. So, they advanced technologically because of war. That's difficult to understand. Couldn't they have advanced without it? Professor Talik sighed. In theory, yes, but humanity's greatest strengths often come out in times of great challenge. The pressure of survival, the need to protect themselves and their loved ones. It drives them in ways we can't fully comprehend. Zora stared at the hologram, her mind racing. But what did they learn from all this? Did they finally realize war wasn't the answer? Talik smiled sadly. Not quite yet. There was another, even more devastating war to come. But humans are nothing if not persistent. They've learned and grown through each trial. And even though they still face conflicts, they have also learned the value of peace, cooperation, and unity. That's what we're here to understand. The lesson ended, and the students were left to ponder what they had seen. The holograms had shown them a glimpse of humanity's dark past, but also hinted at the resilience and adaptability that had allowed humans to endure. As the Zanari students prepared for their next lesson, curiosity and confusion mingled in their minds. They were eager to learn more about these strange, complex beings known as humans. As Zora lay in her quarters that night, staring out at the earth below, she couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. How could a species survive so much destruction and still keep moving forward? What drove them to continue, even when everything seemed lost? She knew the answers would not come easily, but she was determined to find them. The next day, the students gathered once more in the study room, eager for the next chapter in Earth's story. Zora, still processing what she had learned about World War I, had many questions. Today's lesson, however, would prove even more intense. Professor Talek greeted them with a somber tone. Today, we will explore the second global conflict that erupted not long after the first. World War II was far more destructive than anything humanity had seen before. The hologram flickered to life, showing Earth in the late 1930s. Images of military leaders, armies marching, and civilians suffering under oppressive regimes filled the air. Zora felt a shiver run down her spine. The weight of human history pressed upon her, and it was more unsettling than she had expected. This war, Professor Talek continued, was fueled by the rise of totalitarian regimes. It saw the horrors of the Holocaust, atomic bombings, and the deaths of millions. But it was also a turning point in human history, a point where humanity had to confront the darkest parts of itself. The students sat in stunned silence as the hologram played on, showing scenes of bombings, concentration camps, and vast military operations. For a species like the Zanari, who lived in harmony, this level of violence was unimaginable. Zora could barely contain her disbelief. "But why?" she asked, her voice quivering. "How could they let it get this bad? How could so many lives be lost?" Talek paused for a moment, his usually calm demeanor troubled. Humans, as a species, are capable of great good and great evil. Sometimes their greatest achievements come at terrible costs. World War II was a fight against tyranny, a fight for freedom, but it was also a reminder of how fragile peace can be. Cree, sitting next to Zora, asked, "What happened after the war? Did humanity learn from this?" Talek nodded, his tone lifting slightly. After the war, humans realized the need for unity and created organizations to promote peace. The United Nations was established, aiming to prevent such devastation from happening again. But the scars of war lingered. The atomic bombs dropped on Japan showed the world that humans now possessed the power to destroy themselves entirely. The hologram shifted, showing the mushroom clouds over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The room fell silent. The Zanari students couldn't fathom the power that had been unleashed, power capable of ending civilizations. However, Talek continued, with this power came responsibility. Humans entered a period known as the Cold War, where they lived in constant fear of nuclear annihilation, but also in pursuit of technological and scientific advancements. They reached for the stars, made breakthroughs in medicine, and connected the world through technology. Even in the shadow of destruction, they pushed forward. The students remained silent, absorbing the gravity of the lesson. Zora felt a mixture of awe and sorrow. Humans had endured so much suffering, yet they always found a way to rise. But at what cost? As the lesson concluded, Professor Talek left the students with one final thought. Humanity's greatest challenge is not its wars, but its ability to learn from them. They have suffered, yes, but they have also grown. What we must understand is how they balance their destructive tendencies with their desire for peace. Zora, Cree, and the other students left the room in deep contemplation. The weight of Earth's history hung over them like a shadow, but there was a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humans had finally found a way to move beyond their violent past. As the students returned to their study the following day, the atmosphere in the room was noticeably lighter, though still tinged with the heaviness of the previous lessons. Today, they would witness not only the potential for destruction, but the incredible ambition that humans displayed in the aftermath of their darkest times. Professor Talek stood before them, gesturing toward the hologram. Today, we explore the era known as the Cold War, a time of tension between the two global superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. This period was marked by a race not just for military superiority, but for dominance in science, technology, and space exploration. The hologram displayed images of nuclear stockpiles, missile silos, and political leaders locked in ideological struggle. But soon, it shifted to scenes of rocket launches, satellites orbiting the Earth, and most significantly, humans walking on the moon. Zora's eyes widened as she saw the famous footage of Neil Armstrong taking his first steps on the lunar surface. "They went to the moon?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. Professor Talek nodded with a smile. Indeed, they did. In the midst of fear and the threat of global destruction, humans reached for the stars. The space race was one of the most remarkable achievements of the Cold War. It wasn't just about proving superiority. It was about human curiosity, ambition, and the desire to explore beyond their world. The students watched in awe as the hologram showed the Apollo 11 mission. For the first time in their lessons, the images were not of war or conflict, but of unity and achievement. The Zanari, who had mastered space travel long ago, were impressed by the determination of a species still in its technological infancy. Kree turned to Zora, his eyes wide. This is what makes humans extraordinary. They can endure so much pain, and yet they dream of the impossible. Zora nodded, her previous doubts beginning to fade. Yes, they reach for the stars even when they're surrounded by darkness. It's incredible. Professor Talek, hearing their conversation, smiled. Humans are indeed a paradox. While they are capable of great destruction, they are also capable of immense creativity and exploration. The Cold War was a tense time, but it also pushed humanity to make technological leaps that have changed their world forever. The hologram shifted to show the advances in medicine, computing, and communication that had emerged during this period. Not only did they explore space, but they also made breakthroughs in science and technology that have connected their world in ways they never thought possible. As the lesson concluded, Talek left them with a final thought. The Cold War may have been a time of fear and tension, but it was also a time of progress. Humanity learned that their greatest challenges often lead to their greatest achievements. The students left the study room feeling a renewed sense of awe. Humans, despite their flaws, were a species capable of greatness. They had looked beyond their conflicts and reached for something higher, something that transcended the violence of their past. The next lesson brought with it a sense of optimism, as Professor Talek prepared the students for a different side of humanity's story, a story of cooperation and unity after years of division. Today, we explore a new era. Talek began, activating the hologram. After the Cold War, humans realized the importance of cooperation, not just among themselves, but with the entire planet. The hologram showed the formation of international organizations, global summits, and cooperative missions in space. Images of the International Space Station, where astronauts from multiple nations worked together, filled the room. After decades of conflict, humans began to understand that their survival depended on collaboration. Talek explained, "The International Space Station is a testament to this. Humans from different nations, once enemies, now work together in space, pushing the boundaries of science and exploration." Zora watched in admiration. The contrast between this and the wars they had studied was profound. So they learned to put aside their differences. "Yes," Talek replied. "It wasn't easy, and there are still challenges. But humans have come to realize that cooperation is their best chance at a future. From climate change to global health, they've learned that they must work together to solve the problems that threaten their existence." The students were captivated by this new side of humanity. They had seen humans at their worst, but now they saw them at their best, working together, pushing boundaries, and striving for a better future. As the lesson concluded, Zora felt a deep sense of respect for the human race. They had endured so much, yet they continued to evolve, to learn, and to grow. The Zanari had much to learn from them after all. When the students returned for their next lesson, the atmosphere was buzzing with curiosity. They had seen humanity's potential for destruction and cooperation, but today they were going to witness something transformative. The era where humans began to reshape the world at an unprecedented pace, the digital revolution. Professor Talek greeted them with his usual calm demeanor, but with a hint of excitement. Today, we dive into a period that has revolutionized every aspect of human life. The digital revolution is not just about technology. It's about how humans change the way they interact with each other, their environment, and their own potential. With a wave of his hand, the hologram flickered to life, showing images of early computers, clunky and enormous, evolving into sleek, handheld devices that the students instantly recognized. Zora leaned forward, intrigued. This is when they created the internet, right? Talek nodded. Correct, Zora. The internet is perhaps one of the most significant inventions of this period. It began as a means of connecting a few researchers, but by the late 20th and early 21st centuries, it had transformed the entire planet. Communication, commerce, education, entertainment, everything became interconnected. The hologram displayed people communicating across the globe, companies being founded in garages that would go on to become giants, and the birth of social media, which connected billions. The students marveled at the speed of these developments. Zora couldn't help but think how quickly humans had advanced since the Cold War. In what felt like the blink of an eye, they had created a new world. But, Talek continued, the digital revolution brought challenges as well. The more interconnected humans became, the more complex their problems grew. Information could spread instantly, but so could misinformation. Privacy, security, and ethical dilemmas arose as humans grappled with the implications of their own creations. The hologram shifted to images of cyberattacks, data breaches, and social unrest caused by the manipulation of digital platforms. Humans are still learning how to handle the incredible power they've unlocked, Talek said, his tone more serious now. Their tools are powerful, but so are the risks. Cree, always the thoughtful one, asked, so, have they managed to balance the benefits and dangers of this technology? Talek smiled. They're still learning, Cree. The digital revolution is ongoing. Every day, humans invent new ways to use their technology, some for good, some not. But one thing is clear. This revolution has fundamentally changed what it means to be human. It has expanded their potential, brought them closer together, and opened doors they couldn't have imagined even a century ago. Zora looked at the hologram, now displaying a vision of Earth covered in a web of digital connections, satellites in orbit, and humans interacting with advanced artificial intelligence. She felt both awe and concern. They've created a world where they can achieve anything, she said softly, but it seems fragile. Talek nodded. It is. The future they build now will depend on how they manage this power. The digital revolution has the potential to solve many of humanity's problems, but it also requires great responsibility. How they choose to use this power will define the next chapter of their story. As the lesson came to a close, the students were left with a sense of wonder at humanity's achievements, but also a realization that the future was more uncertain than ever. The digital revolution had opened up limitless possibilities, but it had also revealed new challenges. The students now understood that the road ahead for humanity would not be easy, but it would be filled with potential. When the students gathered for the next lesson, there was a sense of anticipation. They had learned about human wars, triumphs, and technological revolutions, but today's lesson would be different. Professor Talek had hinted that they would be discussing the current challenges humanity faced, issues that could determine the fate of the species. As the hologram hummed to life, images of Earth's ecosystems, cities, and vast oceans appeared, but they were not in the pristine condition the students were used to seeing. Instead, there were scenes of wildfires, floods, rising sea levels, and smog-filled cities. Today, we discuss the greatest challenges humanity faces. Talek began, his tone serious. While humans have made incredible progress, they are also confronting crises that could threaten their survival. The most pressing of these is climate change. The hologram zoomed in on the melting polar ice caps, the rising temperatures, and the increasing frequency of natural disasters. The students were silent, taking in the gravity of the situation. Zora's brow furrowed. But they know this is happening, right? Why haven't they stopped it? Talek sighed. Humans are aware, yes. They've made strides in addressing the problem, shifting to renewable energy, creating policies to reduce emissions. The progress has been slow. The complexities of politics, economics, and individual interests often slow down the collective action needed to make a significant impact. The hologram then showed scenes of activists, scientists, and communities rallying to protect the planet, juxtaposed with industries continuing to pollute and governments struggling to find consensus. Climate change is not the only challenge, Talek continued. Humans also face issues of inequality, political instability, and the growing pressure on natural resources. The gap between the wealthy and the poor has widened, and in many regions, access to basic necessities like clean water and food is becoming scarce. The students watched as images of protests, refugees fleeing from war-torn regions, and communities suffering from famine filled the room. It was clear that humanity was at a crossroads. Cree spoke up, his voice filled with concern. How can they overcome so many challenges at once? It seems overwhelming. Talek nodded gravely. It is overwhelming, Cree. But humans are resilient. They have faced seemingly insurmountable odds before. What they need now is collective will and global cooperation, something they are still learning to fully embrace. The hologram shifted again, this time showing the efforts of scientists developing new technologies to combat climate change, engineers working on sustainable solutions, and governments forming international coalitions to address inequality and environmental degradation. While the challenges are immense, humanity has also shown incredible ingenuity, Talek said, his tone lifting slightly. There are countless individuals and organizations dedicated to solving these problems. The question is whether they can do so in time. Zora looked at the images of Earth, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had learned. They've accomplished so much, she said quietly, but they're also so close to losing everything. Talek met her gaze, his expression thoughtful. That is the paradox of humanity, Zora. They possess both the power to destroy and the power to save. The future of Earth depends on which path they choose to follow. As the lesson concluded, the students left the room deep in thought. The story of humanity was far from over, but it was clear that the next chapter would be the most important one yet. Zora, Cree, and their peers now understood that while humans had the potential for greatness, they were also standing on the edge of a precipice. Whether they would rise to the challenge or fall under the weight of their own actions was a question that only time could answer. The students entered the classroom for what they sensed might be one of their final lessons on humanity. Professor Talek stood by the holographic console, his expression calm but contemplative. Today's session, he explained, would focus not just on the challenges humanity faced, but on the hope that could guide them through the uncertain future. Zora and Cree exchanged glances. After hearing about climate change, inequality, political instability, and the dangers of technology, hope seemed like a distant prospect. But as always, they were eager to learn more. Humanity's story has always been one of survival, Talek began, activating the hologram. They faced threats before, both external and internal, and somehow, they've always found a way to move forward. Today, we focus on the emerging forces that could help them solve their greatest crisis. In many ways, hope lies in the very same advancements that created some of these problems. With a gesture, the hologram displayed bustling scenes of innovation, from laboratories developing clean energy sources to communities practicing sustainable agriculture and engineers working on advanced technologies to restore ecosystems. One of the most promising areas of human development is the rise of clean energy technologies, Talek explained, as the hologram zoomed in on massive solar farms, wind turbines, and research facilities harnessing fusion power. Humans are increasingly moving away from fossil fuels, developing more efficient and renewable energy sources. Solar and wind power are spreading across the globe, and there is growing hope that nuclear fusion could provide a near-limitless source of clean energy. Zora watched the hologram with fascination, so they might finally stop the damage they've done to the planet. Talek nodded. It's possible. Humans have already made significant progress in reducing carbon emissions and are exploring methods to capture and store carbon from the atmosphere. They are also developing new agricultural techniques to conserve water, improve food security, and restore biodiversity. All of these efforts could help mitigate the impact of climate change. The hologram then shifted to show communities working together in innovative ways. Another hopeful trend, Talek continued, is the rise of grassroots movements and global cooperation. In response to the many challenges, humans are beginning to come together across national, cultural, and economic divides. International agreements like the Paris Climate Accord, as well as initiatives like the Sustainable Development Goals, show that humanity is capable of collective action on a global scale. Cree, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. But it seems like they've been slow to act. What makes you think they'll succeed in time? Talik's gaze softened. It's true that progress has been slow, and the problems are complex. But humans have a unique ability to mobilize in times of crisis. History is full of examples where they seem to be on the brink of collapse, only to make breakthroughs that transform their future. The technological and social innovations we're seeing now could be the key to addressing the challenges that once seemed insurmountable. The hologram displayed images of young leaders, activists, and scientists. Talik spoke with a hint of pride, as if he were part of the story himself. Many of the solutions are coming from the next generation. Young people across the world are leading movements for environmental justice, human rights, and technological advancement. Their passion and creativity are driving the changes we're beginning to see. The images showed young activists organizing protests, scientists working late into the night in their labs, and entrepreneurs developing groundbreaking technologies. Zora felt a sense of inspiration wash over her. These people weren't just reacting to problems. They were creating new ways to solve them. And then there's artificial intelligence. Talik said, shifting to a more futuristic scene. The hologram showed advanced AI systems analyzing data, optimizing energy grids, improving healthcare, and even predicting natural disasters. While AI poses certain risks, it also holds incredible potential for good. Humans are using AI to solve complex problems faster than ever before, from managing the Earth's resources more efficiently to accelerating scientific discovery. AI could be a major force in helping humanity navigate this difficult period. Cree raised an eyebrow. But isn't AI one of the dangers we talked about before? How can it be both a threat and a hope? Talik smiled, appreciating the thoughtful question. AI is like any tool. It depends on how it's used. If humans can develop ethical frameworks and safeguards, AI could become one of their greatest allies. It could help them understand and address problems in ways that were previously unimaginable. However, it's critical that they manage this technology responsibly. The hologram then displayed medical breakthroughs, cures for diseases, advanced prosthetics, and personalized healthcare solutions. In the field of medicine, humans are on the verge of remarkable achievements. They're developing treatments for diseases that were once thought incurable and making advances in biotechnology that could significantly extend healthy lifespans. These breakthroughs could improve the quality of life for billions. Zora felt a surge of hope. It sounds like they're not just surviving, they're learning to thrive. Talik nodded. Exactly. The very challenges that have threatened humanity are also pushing them toward their most creative and collaborative efforts. It's often in times of crisis that they make their greatest strides. The key now is for them to sustain these efforts and ensure that the solutions they develop are accessible to all, not just a privileged few. The hologram shifted to scenes of education. Children learning in classrooms with access to global knowledge through digital tools. People in remote areas receiving advanced training via virtual platforms. Education is another beacon of hope, Talik continued. As technology spreads, so does access to knowledge. More humans are being empowered to innovate, lead, and solve problems. The more people are educated, the more potential solutions emerge. Cree, his usual skepticism replaced with a sense of optimism, asked, "So you think they'll make it through? That they'll rise to these challenges?" Talik paused, his gaze thoughtful. "It's impossible to know for sure, Cree. Humanity is at a pivotal point. They have the knowledge, the tools, and the creativity to overcome their greatest challenges. But it will require global cooperation, a shift in values, and an unprecedented level of commitment. The future is uncertain, but if they continue on this path, there is great hope." As the lesson ended, the students felt a renewed sense of possibility. Humanity's story was not just one of conflict, struggle, or survival. It was also one of ingenuity, resilience, and hope. The challenges were immense, but so were the opportunities for growth, transformation, and unity. Zora looked at the final image on the hologram, a planet filled with both beauty and fragility, with people working together to build a sustainable future. "They've come so far," she said softly. "If they can just hold on to this hope, They might create a world better than anything we can imagine. Talek smiled. Indeed, Zora, the story of humanity is still being written, and the next chapter holds the greatest potential of all. The classroom was empty now, the students long gone, their minds filled with the stories and lessons of a species that had once seemed so distant and unfamiliar. Professor Talek stood alone, his gaze resting on the holographic projection of Earth, a blue and green orb, suspended in space, rotating slowly as if unaware of the trillions of lives that had called it home. Talek sighed, his thoughts drifting between the past and the future. Over the course of many cycles, he had witnessed civilizations rise and fall, species reach for the stars and return to the dust. But humanity was different. They were fragile, impulsive, and often short-sighted. Yet they were also creative, resilient, and capable of boundless compassion. Talek deactivated the hologram with a simple gesture, the image of Earth dissolving into the ether. He turned and walked to the window, looking out at the vast landscape of their world, a planet that had been shaped by countless generations, each one leaving its mark on the ecosystem, its architecture, and its people. This world, like Earth, had faced its own challenges, and in many ways, the stories of the two planets were intertwined. A soft chime echoed through the room, signaling an incoming transmission. Talek walked to the console, activating it with a touch. The familiar face of Administrator Velia appeared on the screen. Professor Talek, she greeted him with a smile. The students were quite engaged with today's lesson. Their final projects are promising. Some have proposed intriguing solutions for energy efficiency and interspecies cooperation. Talek nodded. They're a bright group. I believe they'll carry the lessons of humanity forward into our own world. We have much to learn from their successes and their failures. Velia's expression softened. Do you think humanity will make it? I mean, in the long run. Talek considered the question carefully. It was one that he often asked himself, but it was one to which there could never be a definitive answer. The future was as uncertain for humanity as it was for any species. But if there was one thing he had come to understand, it was that humans had a unique way of defying expectations. I believe they have a chance, Talek said finally. They've already overcome so much. Their greatest strength lies in their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to find hope even in the darkest of times. If they can harness that hope, if they can continue to work together, then yes, they have a chance to not only survive, but to thrive. Velia's smile returned, a touch of admiration in her eyes. You've always had faith in them, haven't you? Talek smiled softly. Not faith exactly, but perhaps a belief that their story isn't finished yet. They have much to offer, not just to themselves, but to the universe. Their legacy could be one of cooperation, creativity, and exploration, if they choose that path. Velia nodded in agreement. I suppose only time will tell. As the transmission ended, Talek sat down at his desk, reflecting on the journey humanity had taken. In many ways, their story was a microcosm of the larger galactic narrative, one of struggle, growth, and the search for meaning. Whether humanity would rise to the challenges they faced or fall into the traps of their own making was still unknown. But the seeds of hope had been planted, and as long as those seeds were nurtured, there was always the potential for something extraordinary to grow. Talek looked at the stars beyond the window, distant but ever present, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the infinite possibilities it held. In the grand scheme of things, humanity's existence was but a blink of an eye, yet their impact could resonate across millennia. Perhaps one day, far in the future, they would reach out to the stars and find their place among the other civilizations of the cosmos. Perhaps they would bring with them the lessons they had learned, their triumphs, their mistakes, their hopes, and share those stories with the beings they encountered. And perhaps, in doing so, they would remind the universe of the power of hope and the enduring strength of the human spirit. With that thought, Professor Talek smiled to himself, feeling a quiet sense of optimism for the future. The story of humanity was still being written, and whatever came next, it would be a chapter worth reading. The stars flickered outside the window, distant and bright, as the universe continued its eternal dance.